Welcome to Umbrella ND's groundbreaking health equity panel series for neurodivergent adults. We're bringing together diverse voices to tackle the most pressing health equity issues.
I had to turn that off. That was the wrong intro it's playing. I was like, wait a minute. Health equity? No.
It's the same one you played last week.
Did I really?
Yeah. I was wondering.
Nobody said anything.
Well, I thought maybe you were considering it part of the overall broad release of the health equity stuff, since we were talking about the big beautiful bill and Medicaid and all that shit. So
I mean, definitely we're talking about health equity, but this isn't a panel. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Sausage Links.
Yes, this is Sausage Links. The name is Sausage Links. It is self-advocacy survival guide. This is a discussion of what individuals who find themselves in a position of needing to advocate for themselves can do to be stronger, more capable at getting what they need. And while we really do kind of drill into the subject of neurodiversity and all of its ways, shapes, and forms, we are also going to be looking at the intersectionality of other marginalized groups that are impacted by many of the same things. So we will be talking about disability. We will be talking about BIPOC. We will be talking about the LGBTQ plus communities in the process of this. Today, we are actually going to be specifically dialing in to the LGBTQ plus impact of the recent big beautiful bill that has been passed. But before we get there, I'm Jeannie V, one of your hosts. I am a transgender woman. I have shoulder length brown auburn hair. I'm wearing brown rimmed glasses and rainbow sort of scale mail earrings. I'm in a mustard colored flowing top, and I am in my beautiful yellow office enjoying a nice rainy, dreary morning. So, and with me is AJ, my co-partner, co-conspirator, BS disturber, and shit kicker. Good morning, AJ.
Good morning. I am AJ Locascio. I am the founder and executive director at Umbrella ND. And today I have black hair with blue and purple long bangs off to one side, big nerdy glasses, headphones, a black sleeveless v-neck t-shirt, and of course Widget is here in his pouch, and he is a gray and white Italian Greyhound, and right now he is just kind of looking up at me, watching me, making sure that I am okay this morning.
Waiting for you to get all riled up, because This is a very passionate subject that we've been talking about, the big beautiful bill. We are trying to discuss this from a position that really is nonpartisan in talking and targeting specific group responsible, but instead talking about the impact that this is having on groups within the United States. For anybody who may be listening outside of the country, the big beautiful bill was sort of a budget system that was put in place to channel funding in certain ways, including tax breaks and cutting different programs in order to try and establish a better economic situation within the U.S. Experts all agree it is not going to do that. It is going to send the country further into debt. We're going to see trillions of dollars being added to the nation's debt. But within the big beautiful bill, there were some specific points. We've talked about the impact to healthcare. We've talked about the impact on food stability, food security. And today we're going to be talking about the specifics of how this is going to impact the LGBTQ plus community. because one of the things that the current administration wanted to accomplish from day one was removing specifically transgender and gender diverse people from federal recognition through a series of executive orders and through compliance within federal agencies. There has been an intentional effort to remove recognition of transgender and gender diverse people from the United States federal government's observations. And we were very fortunate, as a transgender woman, I've been following this very closely. We've been very fortunate in this big, beautiful bill that specific trans antagonistic pieces of, legislation were removed prior to their final vote. The sad irony is this: there were pieces put into this legislation that would have removed total and complete federal health care access for transgender people, as well as many other pieces of federal funded support. But that has now been removed, and we have been, pretty much connected to anyone else. So we're not going to be specially targeted, but we are going to be inclusively targeted when it comes to Medicare and SNAP benefits, those type of things. But one of the biggest pieces of disappointment that came out of this was that the federal government stopped funding the LGBTQ plus specific hotline resources. Last year, 988 was put into full implementation across the board, and it actually was approved under the first Trump administration. It went into action under the Biden administration. 988 is a resource available to anyone who is experiencing mental health crisis or just a need to speak with someone who is trained. Mm-hmm. And now the specific organizational connections and the funding for LGBTQ plus resources as a part of 988 no longer exist. As of July 17th, those are no longer funded. They are no longer present. You used to be able to press 3 as your option if you needed to seek out LGBTQ plus resources. That is no longer an option. The tragedy of this is that in the existence of 988, 1.3 million people accessed option 3. AJ, you want to jump in there?
Yeah. So some of the conversations around this are talking a lot about youth, but it's not just youth. It's everybody in the LGBTQ plus community who are, losing this really important resource. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean that we can't call and use the resource. It means that there's not going to be specifically trained and informed individuals working with us. Well, we might get lucky,
right? I was
we might get lucky to have some. However,
you're not going to have identified individuals who were in.
Exactly. We no longer get to say, this is what I need for my safety and my health. That intersectional piece is taken out.
Yeah, very much so. And what we have seen is over the last 5 years, the mental health of members of the LGBTQ plus community across the board, not just transgender and gender diverse people, not just youth, but we are talking about all members of the LGBTQ plus community. We're talking about all age brackets. We're talking about all demographics. We have seen an increase in mental health crisis due to the pressure at the state and federal level, as well as local pressures to remove resources, to remove protections, to remove any type of assistance for members of that community, as well as what we see as sort of a tacit antagonism, an ingrained antagonism in the language that people have been using, the way that people, have conversations around this subject. We have seen, targeted advertising during the presidential campaigns. We've seen targeted advertising during sporting events and, special programs, which have demonized not just the trans and gender diverse community, but also those who are a part of same-sex relationships.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the ongoing impact, we have seen a decrease in support of members of the LGBTQ plus community being allowed to live their lives and their existence, and approval ratings across the country have dropped across the board. So we're not looking at, a made up sort of pressure. We are looking at a very real pressure being applied to the community. And that is in turn led to, stress, distress, and mental health crisis, which is where these helplines and lifelines have come into play.
Yeah. So this is important because it really is showing how targeting a community can be detrimental to that community, to its overall wellness and ability to have quality of life.
Yes.
And while we're talking about the LGBTQ plus community today and the effects on it, this affects all communities, because it sends the message that being trauma informed and being culturally aware is not important.
Right.
And when that message is sent, we take incredible steps backwards.
Right. That's in addition to the collateral damage. Because in all of the legislation, in all of the growing negative sentiment toward LGBTQ plus communities, what we have seen is that over the last 5 years, there have been an increased number of confrontations or discrimination against people who were cisgender, heterosexual, in full compliance with legal allowance, being identified as members of LGBTQ plus identities, and then being targeted for harassment, discrimination, assaults, and violence. We have seen a number of cases regarding women's bathrooms and cisgender women who did not appear feminine enough being accused of being transgender women. We have seen assaults on individuals who were identified as lesbians, as gay. We have seen this, this growing hostility moving us back prior to the 1990s. The amount of hostility that we saw in the 70s and the 80s that targeted members of the the gay and lesbian community, that targeted members of the trans identified communities. We're seeing hostility that is reaching and exceeding those levels.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing police harassment. We're seeing, situations of increased effort to demonize, dehumanize, and demoralize the LGBTQ plus community.
Yeah, and of course the reasoning behind this is money. We have to make these cuts. We're spending too much money. The annual cost of this, that is such a hugely important cut for them, $33 million, less than 0.1% of the total federal mental health spending.
Yeah. This is, the interesting side of this is that 988 resource wasn't hiring LGBTQ plus informed people to sit and man a hotline.
Mm-hmm.
They were subcontracting groups that were already doing the work. Groups
Mm-hmm.
such as Trans Lifeline, the Trevor Project.
Yep.
They were subcontracting these groups. They were already out there doing this work. The government just, contracted them to take on the added workload of the 988 calls that came in that happened to overlap their areas of specialty.
Right.
And because the government has wanted to remove the acknowledgement of transgender and gender diverse people, that is also extending to bisexual people. We have seen that the current administration, the current regime of government, has removed official, historical, documented recognition of transgender and gender diverse people. We have also seen them begin to remove any reference to bisexual individuals. And in the case of the recent case of the denaming of a naval vessel after a prominent gay activist,
Mm-hmm.
we see them going after the identity of LGBTQ plus people as a way of eradicating and removing them from recognition.
Yep. Which sends a message that means a lot of us need these informed individuals to talk to.
Exactly.
We need people who understand why it's a big deal and why it does cause a crisis to us individually and as a community. We need these people who are trained, who are informed, and who are part of our own community to talk to. There's never a good time to remove something like this, but right now is the worst time.
And there are many people who are, shall we say, on the fence when it comes to transgender and gender diverse identifications.
Right.
The support of transgender and gender diverse people is tenuous at best. It is not a right and left thing. It is not just a Democrat versus Republican thing. The removal of identity for transgender and gender diverse people stretches across the political spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
We have seen groups who are, identified as progressive individuals, very liberal individuals, also denouncing the identity of transgender and gender diverse people. We have seen members of the LGBTQ plus community also denying or denouncing transgender and gender diverse people. Hell, we have even seen within the transgender and gender diverse community an effort to denounce certain legitimate identities of transgender and gender diverse people. So this is, this is a bizarre situation where at this point, transgender and gender diverse people are hated by a group in almost every identification. Hated enough that denouncing our identity, dehumanizing our existence, and essentially just saying, you are not legitimate. That is hard to live through.
Mm-hmm.
When even people in our own community will gatekeep us and say, well, you're not really trans. You're not really trans enough.
Yeah.
I have been accused of that a number of times. And the pressure and the demoralization that comes along with that, even your own community is unwilling to embrace you. So, I mean, at this point,
Right.
At this point, when we in this community need mental health resources more than ever, we are watching those mental health resources be removed from us.
Right. At the same time that we are being told that for a lot of us, we are also going to quite possibly lose healthcare benefits, lose access to the care that we need for various reasons, mental health, physical health, emotional well-being. Our quality of life is in danger.
It is.
At a time when we're already fighting to have access to the things that we need to have the quality of life that every human being deserves.
Yeah.
So why here are we talking about this so passionately? Well, a lot of us are both queer, LGBTQ plus in some other way than the Q, as well as neurodivergent.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there is quite a bit of documentation that specifically autistic and ADHD folks are overrepresented within the transgender community.
Enough so that groups in this country are trying to claim that being transgender is an outgrowth of being autistic and ADHD.
Yep.
So, I mean, there are people who are trying to put being autistic as a causation and not allowing being transgender or being, part of the Q, not looking at that as its own identification.
Right. And let's make it very clear, they each are their own intersection. They each are their own identity. Yes. I don't want to spend
I've been more trans through my whole life than I was ever ADHD diagnosed.
Right.
I have been more trans than my depression existed.
Right.
Those things, my being trans has lasted alongside all of these other things, but it has been more invasively a part of my life.
Right. And so there are higher disability rates within the LGBTQ plus community than in the rest of the whole community. There are there are so many people within this community who are multiply impacted by this decision.
Mhm.
Losing specialized crisis support, losing disability services through the Medicaid cuts,
Yep.
as well as facing increased discrimination.
There's been, the Williams Institute has done a study on the impact of disability and SNAP benefits on, in particular, transgender and gender diverse identified people, but also the wider LGBTQ plus community. And the identification of that is that there is an inordinate amount of overlap.
Right.
And because of these cuts, when we talk about Medicaid, when we talk about Medicare, when we talk about the state, manifestations of those things, when we talk about SNAP benefits, when we talk about the different assistance programs that are offered, SSID, no, SSDI, there we go. When we talk about Social Security disability, these impact LGBTQ plus people at higher rates.
Right.
Which means that they are an identified group who are going to be targeted in a more drastic way.
Correct. Okay, now let's add another layer of, let's just add another intersection on here. Folks in Black, Brown, Indigenous communities, we talked before in the last 2 episodes, are already facing higher rates of needing support through Medicare, Medicaid for healthcare access, more likely to be economically vulnerable because of the structures that are in place, the systems that are in place that create that vulnerability, and rural folks as well face more isolation when these services disappear. Already isolated individuals are facing more isolation, facing higher rates of family rejection, higher rates of homelessness. This is not what we want or need as a country.
Exactly. And when you look at the concentrations, the per capita concentrations of LGBTQ plus individuals, what you see is that as a demographic, there is a higher concentration of the LGBTQ plus community in the South. In states that are identified as southern states, there is a higher concentration of those people who identify themselves within the LGBTQ plus community. So we add in that we already see that the numbers of disability, the numbers of Medicare and Medicaid assistance, the numbers of SNAP benefits. Then we add the demographic of those individuals who are a part of the BIPOC, demographic of this country, and the concentrations of those people in already underserved areas. We already know within the transgender community that Black transgender women are the most underserved people in this country.
Correct.
We already know this number. We know that they experience the most discrimination. They experience the most abuse. They experience the most homicides and suicides.
Correct.
These numbers are all available. They are not, this is not something that we're making up as we're moving along. These are numbers that are published and constantly being observed.
Right.
All of these numbers are they're going to get worse.
Yep.
And this is not a doom casting. These are projections based on what we've seen in the past.
Right.
That when support or funding or resources are cut, these groups have been identified. They have been markedly, impacted.
Correct.
So,
And I will add,
yeah.
let me add, because I think that, like you said, this is not a doom cast.
Right.
We're giving facts here. We will provide resources and that sort of thing, so that people can go and look and fact check. And we welcome people to send resources to us that we can share out with the community as well. As part of this Big Beautiful Bill series that we are doing right now, haha, funny, we thought we would do it all in 1 or 2 episodes.
Yeah.
We should know better. We should know ourselves better than that.
I did.
However, we will be providing some talking points, some ways to advocate. So we will be providing that as well. We want to front that with giving people the opportunity to be informed during conversations where we are advocating through community supported self-advocacy.
Yes. And at this point, I feel like it's necessary to put it's sort of a disclaimer. We know that if you happen to be a part of any of the groups that we're talking about, your frustration, your fear, your anxiety has been growing exponentially.
Right.
We know you are worried.
Legitimately
worried.
Yep.
These are valid fears. The anxiety is rational. You are not in any way, shape, or form crazy. These things are happening.
Yep.
But you are not alone. You are not alone in your experience of these things. Millions of people, and I know you don't feel them, millions of people are impacted in the same situations. Not in the same way, but in the same situations. And they are looking for hope. They are looking for something to believe in, to trust in, to hope in.
Yep.
While we cannot fix your situation, we understand why you are hopeless. Because some of us are going through it too.
Yep.
And the very first step in self-advocacy, the very first step in self-care is being a part of a community.
Yeah.
A community that we may not understand the specifics. We may not know the exact circumstance, but we understand what it means to be afraid. And we understand that anxiety that grows every time you have to consider going to the doctor, or you have to consider how you're going to, pay for groceries.
Mm-hmm.
We understand those things enough that we can share in at least voicing the burden of it. Yeah, the federal government eliminated the 988 resources for the LGBTQ plus community. But that doesn't mean that the resources themselves are gone.
Right.
The resources are still available. If you are needing some of those resources, we are at least a place to start. Angela, I had a list of some of the major hotlines for LGBTQ plus people on my background on TikTok. TikTok was restricting my visibility because of it, because it was encouraging people to leave the app. If people need to know about a hotline, if you're a part of the LGBTQ plus community and you need to know how to find that voice, reach out to me.
Yep.
I have the numbers.
And we'll make sure that is in the description here, so that people have that. We have that on our website as well. Yeah. That
if you need someone to talk to, if you feel like your mental health is getting worse and worse and worse, and you don't feel you have somewhere to go, we're going to give you those numbers.
Right.
We're going to provide that access. And if you feel like you are alone, understand we are also here in the midst of all of this.
Yep.
You may be by yourself, but you are not alone.
Right.
So don't lose hope. It's very easy right now to give up. It's very easy to say, we're done with this.
Right.
In the light of everything, I mean, I've been doing news on transgender and gender diverse issues for 5 years now. And there have been times when it's just like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm done. I'm done talking about this because nobody cares. AJ,
every one of us who has worked in advocacy knows that feeling.
Yeah.
Because it does sometimes, it weighs on you and it grates on you and it is painful at times. And sometimes we need to take a step back because we need rest.
Yes.
That's part of the advocacy cycle.
Yes.
The difference is when we're doing it completely alone and we're doing self-advocacy and self-care in a vacuum without a community, we feel guilty. We feel like failures when we have to take a step back.
Yeah.
When we have community, we know that we get to step back because there are other people there who are continuing forward. And then we get to switch places. And the work that we're doing continues to move forward. And I have to say, I watched a great documentary on PBS several months back. And it was a couple who lived in, I can't remember where, but they were talking about years and years ago as they were working on same-sex marriage. And one of them was talking about her partner, and she said, the thing with her is she never completely gave up. She kept doing the things to move forward. She was able to do that because she had a strong community around her to be able to do that. And therefore, they were able to make the things happen that they wanted to happen for same-sex couples. So I think that is a really beautiful anecdote
Mhm.
to look at and to understand. This has been done before. This fight has been had before. It's been had by many folks in different communities. We are not doing this alone. We are not the first people who have done this.
No,
And we get to learn from them.
absolutely.
They are here fighting with us right now. That is what keeps me when I get in those hopeless moments, because it does happen.
Yeah.
That is what allows me to take the rest that I need so that I can come back and let somebody else take a rest while I step back in.
For me, I learn from those activists who have been fighting for Black people and Indigenous people.
Mm-hmm.
Having grown up in Oklahoma, being surrounded by Choctaw and Chickasaw nations, that's when I began to become aware of activism. And I began to listen to them and began to watch them. And now that I am doing advocacy for my own marginalized group, I learned to listen to those who have been doing that work. And it's hard to be an activist while at the same time being removed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why listening to those voices and hearing and learning from them is crucial. I mean, when we look at both the history of Black people in this country and Indigenous people in this country, we know that there have been times when society and the government have wanted to get rid of them. They wanted to erase them. And it just happens to be transgender and gender diverse people right now. The 21st century is our turn at erasure.
Yep.
That does not mean that they have been targeted any less. It's just that we happen to be the newest group to be targeted.
Right.
And
they try to keep us apart, right?
oh, yeah.
In this targeting, as one group makes an advance in some way, shape, or form, targeting another group turns that fight against each other so that we're not moving forward. And so when we come together, when we get out of our silos and we work together to have this fight, that's when movement happens.
And that's when they get scared.
Yep.
That's when they get scared.
And do things like are happening now out of fear.
Right. I mean, the fear of roughly 1% of the population is irrational. The fear that transgender and gender diverse people are going to indoctrinate the public school system
Mm-hmm.
is irrational. The fear that transgender and gender diverse people are going to be predatory and violent toward women or children is irrational. There is nothing that supports these things.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as a group, we can be identified as a problem for every other group, then it will be that much easier to silence us and erase us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are loud because we're scared. We are angry because we have been misjudged. Sometimes we're aggressively vocal, but we have been called dehumanizing and demonized names. And sometimes it is absolutely impossible to maintain a passive, calm, and cool composure in the face of that. And when we have been given the promises of people who say, yeah, we're always going to support you, we're always going to stand by you, and then to watch those groups of people decide, no, there is something more important, it's really kind of hard to believe anyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's very hard to think that we do have allies. We've been told we need to be quiet. We need to be passive. We need to not be as aggressive in the things that we talk about. Which is why I've done the best to keep my tone and my emotions at a very balanced place this morning. Because I didn't want anyone to feel like I was irrational, that I was angry, that I had lost my cool. I need to keep this tone so that people can hear that this is what is happening. Because I've been told, why are you yelling? Why are you so angry? Why are you so aggressive? And the realities are this. I'm scared.
Yeah.
Every day I'm scared. I'm scared on multiple levels. And watching the government that is my government try to say that I'm invalid, that I'm not legitimate, that I don't exist, and doing everything they can to make my life harder because of that, creates multiple layers of fear and anxiety and worry. And all of that is just waking up in the morning and getting to a point of being aware that I'm alive again. And then there's the question of, do I present? Do I go out in public? Do I do what I can to minimize myself so that I mitigate risk? And then I decide, fuck it, and I go out in public anyway. I have my therapist. I have a new therapist. The other day, my therapist said, you have homework. And I'm like, okay, this is the first time we've had our meeting. She's like, you got homework. And I'm like, okay, what is it? And she says, I need to know why you're still here. I need you to tell me why you're still here. Because of what you've gone through, why are you still here? And I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer. All I know is this. I am who I am. And no one can take that away from me. So whether it's being identified as transgender or autistic or having ADHD or being impacted by depression and anxiety or disabled, I am who I am. And no one can take that away from me. And if you're listening today and you're watching everything that's happening in the world and you are being targeted and you feel like everyone is trying to take away who you are who you are.
Mm-hmm.
No one can take you away from you. That's why we need each other. That's why we need a community right now.
Right.
Because in light of everybody else saying to us, well, you don't exist, or you just are mental and you need help.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that's true in that is you do need help. You need a community that can accept you, embrace you, acknowledge you, and tell you you are here. So that's my sermon, I guess.
Jeannie's on a serious note this morning.
I am.
But that serious note is there because it is so important for people to understand the message that we've been talking about, that we've been getting, right? Which is marginalized lives don't matter. That's the message that we get. Really, when we look at us and we put all of our intersections or our marginalizations together, we are the majority of the population.
Yeah.
And that's what we want people to remember. That's what we want people to see, is why do we keep pushing? After we've taken a rest, why do we come back and push more? Because we do matter. Every single one of us, in our uniqueness, in our strengths, and in our weaknesses, because we all have them,
Mm-hmm.
both strengths and weaknesses. We are all unique, wonderful beings who matter and who are valid exactly the way we are right in this moment. Yeah. And we want people to understand community is crucial. I see that up there on the screen right now. Community is crucial. We want people to understand there is community. Nobody is alone. And like Jeannie said earlier, yes, it is true that there is not a single person on this earth who can understand exactly 100% your personal experience.
Right.
But we can come together knowing that we all have a unique personal experience with overlaps of understanding.
Yeah.
And when we bring a whole bunch of us together, that understanding is there.
Absolutely.
We do not have to be isolated, even if we are alone, as in by ourselves.
Yeah. And the interesting thing that I have found is that if I'm with a group of transgender people, queer people, if I'm with a group of individuals who experience neurodivergence in some form or a fashion that is similar to mine, when I'm with a bunch of geeks and nerds, or when I'm with a bunch of individuals who are spicy adults when it comes to relational things, when I'm with a group of people that share some type of identity with me, I feel home.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm more at ease. Now we may not all have the answers, even combined, but the thing that we do have is shared experience.
Mm-hmm.
And we can laugh at the laughing parts, and we can support in the crying parts. And that is honestly the only way that we can get through the facts of what are happening. And I think for me, that's why I feel like I'm in this mode today. There is not one fucking thing that we can do about the big, beautiful bill and the impact that it's going to have. When it comes to being a transgender person, there is no fight that goes in my direction. The only thing that I have going for me is knowing that there are others out there who are transgender or gender diverse. And there are the people who love them and support them. And that right there is why. We can't change the fact that the government stopped funding LGBTQ plus support in 988. We cannot change that the government is erasing transgender and gender diverse people and bisexual people from American history. We can't change those things. What we can do is that we can find others like us and encourage each other and hope with one another and provide, a sense of you are a part of something bigger than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then we share the numbers of resource lines. We remember our story and our history, and we tell our story and our history. We don't need the federal government to do that. Right. The reality is that the federal government does a shitty job of it anyway. We are the ones who hold our stories. We are the ones who tell others of our existence. We are the ones who are able to be at the heart of telling others that we exist.
Right. And there's nothing more powerful than a story.
Exactly.
Absolutely nothing.
Exactly.
And I would say that's one of the strategies that we use when we're talking about community-supported self-advocacy. Share your story.
Yeah.
Share your story. Some people say, Jeannie, I almost see you laughing at me right now. Some people say, my story isn't interesting or my story doesn't matter. And Jeannie has said to me before, you need to write a book. And I'm like, nobody would read that book. The fact is, people would read the book because people thrive on stories. People want to hear stories. That's why media is as impactful as it is.
Yeah.
And if you have a story, you have a platform. With Umbrella, you have a platform to share your story.
Yeah.
And I think maybe that is a great place for us to stop today with maybe the promise of next episode being focused on how to communicate as a self-advocate who has community support and what are some strategies that help us unsilo and really advocate with intersectionality at the center.
I think it's a good place.
I like it.
Thank you, everyone, for being a part of the conversation today. We hope that you found something useful or something hopeful or something that will at least encourage you. If you need more information, please go and enter into your web browser, umbrellaopensdoors.org. You will find information, resources, you will find connections to make. You will also be able to find in this, in the description of this program, the resources for different hotlines and lifelines that are available. And also you will be able to make connection with either AJ or myself and be able to ask questions directly if that is something that you need. But thank you all. AJ, I love you so much. Appreciate
I love
you.
you too.
And we hope to see you, or at least to speak with you during the next episode of Sausage Links. Thank you, everyone.